let me
Yes.
introduce you to the speaker of the day. This is a person called Mohini Khot.
Oh,
In
sure.
fact, the first speaker, the book club, was Mohini Khot way, way, way back. And she's there again. We are married. But do you think who does she love more? Guess. She loves books. Anytime and everywhere, there's a book in her hand. And there's always a talk about how this book is, what is happening here, what is this, etc. It's great fun. And oh, by the way, Chetan is always waiting that Mohini and I argue with each other, and Chetan will have a smile on his face watching us do that. But Mo, go on ahead. Mohini is a professor of English literature. She's supposed to be retired, but still takes 3 hours of lecture thrice a week or twice a week, 3 hours of lecture because she enjoys it. Anyway, Mo, take it on over, and
Yes.
it's you to do it now.
So, hi everyone.
Okay, by the way, 1 minute before sounds off, please mute yourself, everyone. I'm also muting. Please mute everyone.
Okay, so hello everyone. Always a pleasure to be here. And like Satish says, I choose to continue my connection with literature. And today's book, in fact, is all about choices. And I do feel that life is a series of choices. And in fact, before I embark on what this book is, I mean, since Satish has, given that particular introduction, I'd just like to mention another book, a nonfiction book called The Art of Choosing by Sheena Iyengar, which Satish and I read many years ago and which we were so impressed by. It's in the Pune Club Library. That's where we got it from. Sheena is the daughter of Sikh immigrants who went to Canada, and she became blind at the age of 11. But she went on to become a professor at Columbia University. She's married to this person called Iyengar, obviously. I'm a great fan of these interstate marriages and so on. So I just love this person from South India, from Sadarni, who's married a South Indian, and a blind woman who has gone on to make such a success of herself and has such a huge reputation.
A small break.
Now,
they are separated now.
They're separated? Oh, what a pity. Anyway, so I am going to talk about this novel today, The Midnight Library. Now, Gautam is here, and he said to me the other day, why have you chosen this book, such a sad book? The protagonist commits suicide. Why, And so I just want to say at the beginning that the protagonist does commit suicide, in fact, on page 23, but it's not at all a sad book because there is a certain premise, a very imaginative, fanciful premise that the book is based on, which is that if when you die, you have regrets, then you can have a chance at changing your life. So after death, the person does not just disappear or go to heaven or hell or any of those traditional concepts, but he goes into this sort of a limbo in which he finds himself in a place where he is comfortable with a person who he's very comfortable with, and he is in conversation with that person and reviews his life, looks at the regrets that he has, thinks about all the wrong choices that he has made, what choices he could have made, and how his life could have been different, of course, would have been different had he made those choices. And now this is the central foundation of this novel, that there is such a place, where he's in limbo, and he gets a chance actually to, in fact, the person in the book uses the expression, try on. Would you like to try on another life? And our protagonist, Nora, says, what do you mean try on? It's not like I'm trying on a set of clothes. And she says, well, you can try this one on. You can try the one that you choose. And if it doesn't suit you, you'll come back here and you can have another chance at trying something else. So, wow, how wonderful is that? Now, of course, this is not reality, but hey, whoever said we have to confine ourselves to reality? So this is what the book is about. I liked the fanciful notion. And now I'm going to share screen. I will take you through the novel and what happens, in a sort of skeletal way, as it were. But the main thing in the book is all about choices. I'll begin with that. So okay, so here we are. So this is Matt Haig, the author of the book. I had vaguely heard of him. I didn't know anything about him when I picked up this book. It was a total chance picking up of a book that sounded interesting. Soon after, Sunita had presented that fabulous book, The Paris Library. And I saw this, The Midnight Library. So I said, hey, I wonder what this is about. And I picked it up. Then I discovered there are so many such titles, I can't recall them now, but there are several books with library in them. Anyway, this is the one I picked up. So Matt Haig, apparently a very well-known and popular writer, Englishman, writer and journalist. He writes fiction and nonfiction. He writes for adults and children. And he's pretty prolific. At the age of 47, he has quite an output already. Now, I would say that he's not your run-of-the-mill pulp fiction writer. And for example, if I say that one of his novels was inspired by Hamlet and another has taken inspiration from Henry IV, that can't be a bad thing to say about a writer, right? Just to give you an idea, here are some of his novels. He's won awards for them. One of the novels, which is intended for children, begins with the death of the child's parents and how he has to cope with it. So, these are serious subjects, but very well written about. They're not, what shall I say? They're not pessimistic. They're not preachy. I think it's a terrible thing to be preachy, and they are not. Then, there are interesting concepts, like one of them has an alien who takes the identity of a university lecturer. Fascinating. Then another one is called How to Stop Time, which is a novel about a man who looks to be 40 years old, but in fact is 400 years old and has met people like Shakespeare, And this particular novel, in fact, is in process of film adaptation. And you have as great a person as Cumberbatch, Benedict Cumberbatch playing the lead role. So I think that speaks well for his writing too. He's also written songs, lyrics for Andy Burroughs, who has a disc called Reasons to Stay Alive, which is also the title of one of his books. Now, just to give you an idea of the number of books that he has written, there you go. Now, this book, Reasons to Stay Alive, is a recent success. And I think this is one which is connected with the novel that we're reading. Therefore, I want to just spend a moment on it. It has been called an autobiography. It has been called a memoir, but it is more than that. It deals with depression. And depression is a modern disease, isn't it? It's something that so many people suffer from. And increasingly, people are coming out in the open and talking about it. I mean, a person like Deepika Padukone, whose life seems to be a charmed life, who would think that she could be depressed? But she has been, and she has, been open enough to talk about it. But this sounds like a very serious subject indeed. But it's very readable. And I've just put a comment by a reader down below. The reader has called it a moving funny and joyous exploration. And the book apparently has the effect of teaching you how to live better, love better, and feel more alive. So I don't think there can be a better comment than that. And in fact, this comment sort of applies to the Midnight Library as well. Because though we're talking about the aftermath, what happens after life ends, something that centuries of, generations have thought about, have agonized about, have wondered about. It's a very serious topic. But believe me, the book is not overly serious. There's so much humor in it. Now, firstly, I'd like to say that it is less than 300 pages. It's 285 pages, which means that it's not a tome, it's not a ponderous volume. Then the chapters are very short, 2 pages, 4 pages. So that helps. And the characters are, he really shows us the people that he's talking about in a very intimate way. You get to care for them. The technique used is not chronological, which keeps your interest going also, because you pick up little bits about the characters and about their life stories as you go along. So you know a little bit, and then maybe, she tries on one life and you find out something more. And so it is like a jigsaw puzzle. You're putting things together and finally getting the whole picture. Now, what do you call this kind of fiction? Is it sci-fi? Well, not really, not like Asimov is sci-fi, nor is it fantasy, like the Lord of the Rings is fantasy. I like this term, speculative fiction. So this is the term that I think suits Matt Haig's genre. It is speculative fiction, the what if, what if? How would life have been? How would the world have been if this were? So the Midnight Library talks about a what if situation, if there were a library that you could go to. And by the way, it doesn't have to be a library. Everyone is not comfortable being surrounded by books. So it could be a cafe, it could be a bench in a park, it could be a casino, it could be anything. It could be a video library, where whatever place the person is very comfortable in, and with only one other person there who he thinks of as a friend, a sympathizer and a friend, someone he can open up to. But it has also been said that his novels are often dark and quirky. Well, quirky, yes, definitely. Now, the Midnight Library. There is this concept of a limbo after death, where you get a chance not to go on into the world of the dead, but to return to the world of the living in a different storyline, okay, in a different life, a life that would have been if you had made a different choice at some point in time. And you'll agree that we are making choices every moment. Now, the choice of whether to make slides for this presentation or to not make slides for this presentation is also a choice. And I exercised that choice. Then there's the choice of whether one should go to medical college or do an arts course. That's a choice. Some of them are moment defining. Some of them can be life defining. Now, the basic premise in the novel is that of life being a series of choices. If the one who has died has regrets, but does have the will to live, he can be given further chances to find the life of his choice. So if looking back, he feels that the life he has lived is not the life that he would live again, given another chance, then he can try on, as it were, a different life and see if that suits him better. And I'm sure you're all wondering, so what? After he tries it, then what? Well, he can stay there. He can stay there if he wants. All right. Now, these are just images of libraries. In the book, we're told that this library to which our protagonist is subtly transported is huge. It's sort of infinite. The shelf on and on. She cannot see the end of the library. There's an epigraph before the actual storyline begins, a few lines that Sylvia Plath had spoken. I can never be all the people I want and all the lives I want. I can never train myself in all the skills I want. And why do I want? I want to live and feel all the shades, tones, and variations of mental and physical experience possible in my life. I think the epigraph is very important because it gives that that dimension of joy to the novel. So though it's about what happens after death, I mean, death is obviously the only fact about life, is that it ends. So death seems like a grim subject, but I want to reiterate, it is not treated in a grim way at all. So what is the novel about? It's about people should have the chance to live as fully, as they would like to live. Most of us don't manage that. You make a choice. You go for a music class in which there's vocal training, and therefore you can't also go to a piano class. You're making choices. But suppose you managed to do much, much more. How wonderful that would be. So that sense of joyousness in getting a second chance, trying something else, making your life more complete and vivid is what the novel is about. There's a definite sense of joyousness in it. Now, when Nora, our protagonist, finds herself in the library, she finds that, she thinks, is it the school library where she used to run away? That was her refuge. And the librarian, who was this elderly, gray-haired, comfortable woman, became sometimes a mother substitute, because Nora's own mother was a very critical and sort of sharp person, not really motherly at all. And she says, between life and death, there is a library. And within that library, the shelves go on forever. Now, there are loads of books, and they're all green, by the way. Each one is green, different shade of green, but green. Some are small, some are large, some are thin, some are thick. But, all the shelves are filled with these books. So if you had the chance, would you like to undo your regrets? In short, would you like to change a decision that you made at some point in your life that you now regret? Now, how does it begin? It begins like this. 19 years before she decided to die, Nora Seed sat in the warmth of the small library at Hazeldean School in the town of Bedford. Now, I think Nora Seed, very ordinary name. I think there's a point to that. She is sort of every girl, and Bedford is just every town. It's nothing special. And she's anxious. And Mrs. Elm, the librarian, trying to make her feel better. She says, oh, come on, it's natural to worry. But look at the last line. There are many different possible lives ahead of you. Now, that's the thing. Depending on the choices you make. Now, Nora is very young. She's 15 years old at that time. And the librarian tells her there are so many possibilities. Life is so rich, There's a wealth of choices that you have before you. So, who is Nora? What is she? She became a swimming champ because her father encouraged her to swim. That's what he wanted. He had been a sports person himself. He wanted to be a rugby player, but because he had an accident, he could not actually become a rugby player. So he becomes a teacher in a school and he coaches little boys with rugby. But there is that sense of lack of fulfillment. And he wants his daughter to excel in some sport. So he starts her swimming. And because her mother is not a sympathetic person, she sort of adheres more to her father. And she swims because he wants her to, because every human being, and particularly every child, I'm sure you'll agree, needs stroking. We all need to be told that we're doing something good, we're doing something well. We need the approval of those we care for. And she wants her father's approval, so she starts swimming. And guess what? She's so good at it that she becomes a school champion, a local champ. By the time she is 15, she is winning national titles And the papers are talking of her as a possible Olympic choice in a year or two. So she's become that good. In the opening chapter, we are told that the news comes of her father's death, a heart attack, on the sports field. And it is Mrs. Elm who picks up the phone and has to tell Nora that her father is no more. And remember, her father is the parent that she connects more with. And she cries and cries and cries, and it is Mrs. Elm who holds her. Her mother has always been critical of her, to the point that apparently when Nora was a baby, her mother felt that her ears were asymmetrical and that one stuck out more than the other. And she didn't like this, so she used to tape. She actually used sellotape to tape the ear down and then covered the offending ears with a woolen hat. Whoever does, which mother ever does that to a baby, for God's sake? Okay, she has a brother, Joe, and when the story begins, she's 35 years old, after that, those opening few pages, and she lives in Bedford and he lives somewhere else. And when he comes to Bedford, he doesn't even bother to meet her. And she hears about his presence from this guy called Ravi, who had been a partner in a band that the three of them had made together. There's also a boyfriend, Dan, who's very full of himself. Now, before you say that, oh, aren't we all? Yes, we are. We all tend to be full of ourselves. But maybe Dan was a little more full of himself than most people. And his dreams and what he wanted sort of dwarfed Nora's dreams and what she wanted. And she was swept away by his ambition. He's an art history major and Nora's a philosophy major, but he takes a job in PR, so nothing to do with art. Chapter 1 begins 19 years before she decided to die. Okay, that's when she hears of her father's death. Second chapter is 19 years later, 27 hours before she decided to die. Her cat dies, apparent on the road. Now, what is very disconcerting, of course she's upset that her cat has died. Someone rings the bell, a doctor called Ash rings the bell, tells her, is that your cat? It has your address on it. I'm afraid he's dead. And she goes out to see, and she's so sad. They carry the cat back in. But when she looks at the cat, what she feels is envy. The peace, the peaceful look, the tranquility on the face of the cat is something that she envies. She wishes she had it. Next chapter is 9.5 hours before she decides to die. She loses her job. It's a very miserable job considering she has a degree in philosophy. She's working at a music shop and she is let go because she always looks so miserable, and that's not the kind of salesman they want in the shop. Then that evening, 9 hours before she decided to die, she's, she has this boyfriend, Dan, who she's supposed to marry. But 3 months before the wedding date, her mother dies, and she's pretty broken up because now she has no parents. And she decides that maybe she shouldn't marry this guy. She's not sure about him. One of the things is that he wants kids, and she is very terrified. She thinks that she would not be able to take care of children. She can barely take care of herself. So clearly she has a very low threshold of self-worth. 8 hours before she decided to die, she meets Ravi, and he's still angry with her for disrupting their band. They had this band, and Universal, which is a very good music label, had decided to give them their label. So they were on the threshold of maybe huge success. But then Nora gets cold feet and she opts out. And then the whole thing falls apart, and there's no future in rock for them. 7 hours before she decides to die, Nora is in free fall, has no one. Now, this is a typical modern situation. She lives on her own. Izzy had been her flatmate. Izzy has gone to Australia. She had wanted Nora to go with her. Nora decides not to go. Another decision, right? Which sometimes she regrets. She messages Izzy, but there's no response. But of course, there's the time difference, so who knows? Now, Thoreau is Nora's favorite philosopher. And he has said this, go confidently in the direction of your dreams. But Nora thinks maybe Thoreau could do that in those days, but she can't do it. Maybe she was just crap at it, at life. Maybe she's just not a good liver, a lifer. She's just not. And she's looking very morose and going home from the shop where she's lost her job. And someone looks at her and says, cheer up, love. It might never happen. I mean, she's that miserable that passers-by notice. But that was the whole problem. Nothing ever did. So life is so boring. Life is so dull. There's nothing to look forward to. 5 hours before she decided to die, oh, she's lost her job, right? She doesn't earn much, but that was her only income. She gives piano lessons once a week to a child for free, but she forgets that. And the mother of the child phones and says, where are you? And she says, oh my God, I forgot, I'll be there. And she says, no, he's gone on somewhere else. And you know what? Let's stop the lessons. So even that is gone. The only person who seems to need her in his life is this old man called Mr. Banerjee, who needs his medicines brought for him. And she meets him in the street, and he tells her, hey, Nora, I found a boy, the new boy at the chemist's can deliver the medicines on his way home, so I don't need you to do it anymore. And she feels terrible because now even he doesn't need her. So nobody needs her. And she looks back at her life where every move had been a mistake, every decision a disaster, every day a retreat from who she'd imagined she'd be. Now, she's been a terrific swimmer. I mean, Olympic level, for heaven's sake. A musician. She wrote songs and she was the lead singer. So that's quite a combination. Philosopher, spouse. She wanted to be a married person. Now, nowhere does Matt Haig, by the way, use the word wife. It's not that she wanted to be a wife. She wanted to be a spouse. And I think that's an important difference because the word wife comes loaded, doesn't it? With connotations of being the secondary person in a relationship, but spouse gives equality. She wanted to travel. She wanted to go to the Arctic and check out the situation of the melting glaciers. So Mrs. Elm had suggested she could be a glaciologist. She could be anything. To be happy, to be loved, these are things she wanted. But she couldn't even manage cat owner. She hadn't even been able to keep her cat alive. She hadn't been able to keep her pupil, her once a week piano pupil, with her. She seemed a human incapable of conversation. No one wanted to talk to her or be with her. Now on page 23, we get to see the suicide note that she has left. Dear whoever, I had all the chances to make something of my life and I blew every one of them. Through my own carelessness and misfortune, the world has retreated from me. And so now it makes perfect sense that I should retreat from the world. If I felt it was possible to stay, I would, but I don't, and so I can't. I make life worse for people. This is what she genuinely thinks. The world is better without her. I have nothing to give anyone. Now, Mrs. Elm tells her between life and death, there is a library, okay? So would you have done anything different if you had a chance to undo your regrets? Am I dead? Is this the afterlife? Not exactly. Would you have done anything different? I haven't become an Olympic swimmer, though she had the chance. I haven't become a glaciologist. She could have gone that path. I haven't become Dan's wife. She jilted him. I haven't become the lead singer of the Labyrinths because she opted out. I haven't managed to become a truly good or truly happy person. I haven't managed to look after Voltaire. Voltaire is the name of her cat. And now, last of all, I haven't even managed to become dead. I mean, even her suicide seems to have failed because here she is talking to the school librarian. Now, there's a regret overload. And Mrs. Elm shows her the biggest, thickest book in the library, which is the Book of Regrets. And there is a list of all the things that Nora regrets. Now, some of them disappear because as you go on in life, sometimes you realize, oh, you don't regret that. That was the right decision after all. So that writing fades and disappears, but a new regret might come in its place. So this is the fanciful place that the library is. Now, again, the basic premise here is that if you want to live, the library will exist and will keep giving you chances. But if at some point you cease to want to live, then the library will disappear and you will be dead. Okay? Now, the first regret that she considers is that she didn't marry Dan because she thinks she's been very unfair to him. It was a fairly long courtship. They had been together 3 years, and she wanted to contribute to his dream of owning a little pub in the country, but maybe she was just scared of everything, not only being his spouse, but having that pub, running it, maybe having to have children because he wanted them. Maybe she was just scared of living. Now, this is a bit that I wanted you to see. I'm not useful to anyone. I was bad at work. I have disappointed everyone. I'm a waste of a carbon footprint, to be honest. I hurt people. I have no one left. I want to die. My life is a disaster. I add nothing. I'm wallowing in self-pity. I want to die. She had wanted to marry Dan, and the first life that she tries on is as Dan's spouse. So suddenly, she finds herself at this little pub in the English countryside. And she realizes, oh, so we did make it happen. That was Dan's dream. But of course, they needed financing and all that, and they weren't sure whether they'd be able to do it. Apparently, they did it. Now, Dan always drank a lot. Now he drinks even more. He never used to get drunk, but now the drink is showing on him. And he's become surly, He's not nice to her. He's apparently been having affairs. They have had confrontations about this. He can't bear any man being near her, but she's supposed to forgive him his transgressions. So there's this guy called Ash, who is a surgeon, the one who finds the cat in the road and brings it in. She meets him another time and he asks her out for a coffee, but she refuses because, she is currently with Dan. He's become nasty. So this life is not really for her. The second huge regret that she has or that she would like to rectify is if she hadn't let the cat out, he wouldn't have died. That's what she thinks. So she goes into that life where she hasn't let him out, but he's dead anyway. And she's devastated. She can't understand this. And so she comes back. Now, whenever a life doesn't suit her, she will automatically come back to the library. That's how it is configured. So she's back in the library and she asks Mrs. Elm, what happened? I didn't let him out, but he was dead. That's not fair. And she says, you thought he died as the result of a road accident. Maybe he didn't. Maybe his time had come. In fact, she said, cats know when they're going to die. Maybe he crept away to save you the heartache of seeing him die. Then a third regret that she has had is that she should have gone with Izzy. Izzy was her best friend. She had this dream of going to Australia together. And although Nora found that a very attractive idea, she ultimately does not go. And she regrets that. So she finds herself in Sydney, but she has tattoos, very tasteless tattoos. She has scars, so it looks like she is on drugs. Dan is pursuing her, they're not married, but he's phoning her, writing to her, telling her that he's coming to Australia. And what do? They work for a whale watching tour company. So nothing very fascinating. And her friend Izzy is already dead, has died in a car crash, and she's on her own, waiting to go back home. Then the huge thing, I mean, she was an Olympic level swimmer, for God's sake. And to announce at age 15, when she's on the brink of the big time stuff, she announces that she doesn't want to swim anymore. Why? Because she can't take the pressure, the visibility, seeing her picture in the papers. Now, she says, at one point, someone says to her, "Oh, I remember that day at school when you were made to stand up in the assembly, and the headmaster devoted that entire assembly to you, and how proud the school was of her." Now she remembers that moment as something terrible, to have to stand up and be looked at by everyone. It was miserable for her. So because she couldn't stand the visibility, she couldn't take the pressure of having to, outperform herself each time, she decided to give up. Of course, her father was terribly disappointed, and he died soon after. Now, when she goes back into the life where she didn't stop swimming, she finds herself at the age of 35. She has got the Order of the British Empire. She is a celebrity motivational speaker at a conference and being paid £15,000 for this talk. She has been twice at the Olympics, won a gold medal, and retired at 28 after breaking a world record. So that's quite something. And in this life, her father isn't dead, he's alive. And he's married again. And it seems kind of surreal, talking to him. But she's so happy to have this good relationship with her father, because in the root life, I remember he was very annoyed with her because she went against his dream for her. She has a good relationship with her brother also. But here again, she has to go on stage and speak. And she's going to be recorded, and she's going to be on TV. And she can't stand it. She has stage fright, or maybe it's life fright. Remember, she hates visibility, and so she leaves. The moment she feels that she doesn't like this life, she automatically gets transported back to the library. Now, the next life she tries on is this crazy role of the glaciologist, She was quite fascinated by an adventure in the Arctic. So there she is. And she finds herself outdoors while the rest of her team is looking, doing their research. She has to stand and be the spotter, look out for bears because they're really dangerous. And a bear does come, and she screams. And, she says, I want to go back to the library now. She always thought that if she wanted to go back, she would automatically go back, but that doesn't happen. And she finds herself being looked after. She's had a big shock, but she's not dead. And she meets there this guy called Hugo, who is, now this is very interesting. He's another slider. Slider is the word he uses. He also is in that limbo post-death. And in fact, he tells her, he recognizes that she's a slider, because when she arrives, she's very vague. She doesn't know what her role is. She doesn't know where her room is. He sees the signs. His library is a video store, and his guide is an uncle. And he has already tried 300 lives. And she asks him, but can this go on forever? And he says, well, if you have the will to live, you can just go on and on. Now, when she gets back to the library after some time, Mrs. Elm implores her. She says, look, Nora, you have to think, you have to introspect. What is it that you want? And who are you? The question posed by Socrates. I mean, who are you? You have to recognize, you have to discover who you are and make the right choice. Then, she yearns for those creative days when she wrote songs and she was singing. So she goes to the life where she did not back out of the band. And she finds that the band is a huge success. They're famous worldwide. And she finds herself in the middle of a performance in Brazil. And the band, the Labyrinths, are huge. There's an audience of 20,000. They're on a world tour. There are fans everywhere. She has now in every life, she looks at herself to see how she looks. And in some, she has a very sporty body. In some, she's let herself go to seed. Now, in this life, she has a lip piercing and a tattoo saying all good things are wild and free, which is Thoreau, her favorite philosopher, a white streak in her black hair and vampire-like makeup. And she has had an affair with Ryan Bradley, who is the hugest Hollywood star there is. And they have had an amicable parting and he phones her. Seems a really great life. And she apparently has a house in Beverly Hills. Now, she feels empowered on stage. And she wonders why had she ever been afraid of this? And these lines sort of well up like it's going to be a song that she composes. She had a fire inside her. She wondered if the fire was to warm her or destroy her. Then she realized a fire had no motive, only she could have that. The power was hers. But now, so there were lots of wonderful things in this life, but there were negatives also. Dan has been stalking her. And in fact, she's had to get a restraining order against him. The press apparently hates her. And her latest song is a very troubled expression. And the song is reproduced in the book. I thought there wouldn't be time, so I'm not going into it. But very pained song, a very unhappy soul searcher who hasn't found herself and, isn't happy. Her brother Joe has been her manager, more or less, as well as a member of the band, and he's died as a result of an overdose of drugs. That's the kind of life they live. Now, her brother's death throws her into the depths of sorrow, and she comes back to the library, and she says she wants to opt out. She doesn't want to try anything anymore. She wants her library card back. And Mrs. Elm reminds her that the library exists as long as she has the will to live. If she had lost it, the library would have crumbled. It would have ceased to exist, which shows that the will is not yet dead. Now, Nora starts introspecting and she realizes that she has always lived other people's dreams, not her own. Being a swimming champ was her father's dream. The married life in a pub, Dan's dream. Australia, Izzy's dream. Glaciologist, Mrs. Elm's suggestion. She must find a life of her own. And Robert Frost's poem, which I'm sure Indu will talk about when she talks about Robert Frost, famous one, The Road Not Taken. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Every decision you take makes a huge difference. Then there are various lives, so many little, she tries them. They absolutely don't suit her. These are some of the lives. Now, Hugo, that slider, I told her, you didn't have to enjoy every aspect of each life to keep having the option of experiencing them. You just had to never give up on the idea that there would be a life somewhere that could be enjoyed. The more lives you tried, the easier it became to think of something, something wider, bigger, because that imagination expands and you can think more clearly about what life you would enjoy having. Now, Nora feels she has run out of lives and she feels ungrateful, that every life she tries, she's still unhappy. But clearly she's not lost the will. And here you realize that sometimes you think you're finished with life, but you're not. Sometimes you don't recognize that will within yourself. Now, there's one thing. She had wanted to accept that offer by that young doctor when he said, let's have a coffee someday. But she was with Dan, so she said, I don't think so. Suppose she had said, yes, sure, and they had gone. What would have happened then? And she finds herself in that life that she's married to him. and has a 4-year-old daughter. How about that? In another life, she was afraid to have children, remember? But she's had this daughter. She's a professor of philosophy at Cambridge University, and he's a surgeon at the hospital there. She has no tattoos or scars, only a line across her tummy showing that she's had a cesarean. And she loves this life. She grows to, I mean, it's not instantaneous that she loves the child. She has to get to know her. But she does. She gets to love the child. She gets to love Ash. But she is catapulted back into her own root life. But now, okay, she finds herself back in the library, and she doesn't want to be in the library. She wants to go back to that life. And she tells Mrs. Elm, put me back there. That's the life I want. And she said, it doesn't work that way. Remember, when you lose the will to try other lives, the library ceases to exist. So if you allow this to continue, the library is on fire, books are starting to burn, the walls are crumbling, then you will die. So do something, find the book that will allow you to live. And Nora doesn't know what to do. And Mrs. Elm will also die in the fire, of course. But she says, that's okay. Don't worry about me. Find the book. It's in the 11th aisle. And so she goes running, and it's the only book that has not caught fire. She catches hold of the book and she runs out. Now, when she takes the book and runs out, she finds that she's back in her original, what they call the root life. But it is now with a different perspective. And this little poem comes up. The sky grows dark, the black over blue, yet the stars still dare to shine for you. And that's how the book is. Yes, we're talking about unhappiness, sorrow, the urge to commit suicide, but there is still hope. The stars still dare to shine for you. Yesterday, I knew I had no future and that it was impossible for me to accept my life as it is now. And yet today, that same messy life seems full of hope, potential. Now, when she's thrown back into her life, what does she see? She sees Ash driving a different car, turning into the hospital at Bedford. So that's where he still is. He hasn't gone to Cambridge yet. And well, she has to find out how to do things. Now that she has decided what will make her happy, we presume she will now take those decisions to get to that life. Do I want to live? Yes, yes. 1,000 times, yes. This is the girl who committed suicide, remember? So that's what happens in the book. And I hope you'll now agree with me that it's not a sad book at all.
Very
it's
well.
an introspective book. It encourages you to be mindful. Be very, mindful is a current word, I'm using it. To be mindful about what you do, what you decide. Don't take things carelessly, irresponsibly. Don't think that, oh, what's the difference? Of course, there's a difference. Every decision makes a difference. And that's how the book ends. It ends, I insist that it ends on a hopeful note. There is every hope for Nora. She has faced her ghosts. She has confronted them. She has moved on. And all because of this speculative premise of the limbo that gives you a chance to try again. That's it. Thank you.
Excellent. Mohini, it's all about what if, would have, could have, should I. What if we are thinking all the more what if infinite possibilities of life? We all think of the infinite possibilities of life. What if I had done that? What if I had lived that life that I thought of so many years back? I would have liked to be a football player playing in one of the better tournaments in Europe. If I had, what I've lived a life that I had thought of. That's what everyone thinks of it. And I think we all have these memories. It's of the different parts that we get taken. and not taken. And I think it's a beautiful memory lane that she's taken us on.
Yeah, it's speculative fiction,
And more, it's another thing. These are the images that we would have liked to. But did we really want them? They look fanciful there. It's going to be very fantastic. I'll be singing in South America and others. But I would have liked to climb Mount Everest. I would have liked to do underwater diving. But could I have? Is it possible? Or what I did? So this thought process that we all have, I think, is what makes a human being. And I like the whole concept that we are talking about. Okay, let me not talk. Hey guys, everyone, put up your hand. Let's see who's going to say something. Uh, Let me ask Anindya. Where are you, Anindya? You were there somewhere. Anindya is a newcomer, and he was. Come on, Anindya, where are you? Speak up. Or we get the senior most person down here right now, Dr. Bharucha. Dr. Bharucha, what's your take on this?
Okay. I guess, hi everybody. I guess everybody has regrets and everybody has always made choices. One thing that is very similar to what happens in the book for me was that I didn't really make choices. I think other people made choices and I just followed on that line. Well, yeah, of course there could be some regrets, but yeah, I guess I had a full life even if I was looking at what other people expected of me.
And you were happy with their choices for you.
And we are happy for the choices
fortunately.
you made. And Dr. Bharucha, we are happy for the choices you did. You've done a very good choice. That's why I'm clapping for that. Anindya, are you there?
He's not there.
So he's not there. Okay. I think Runa has read some other book by the same author. So I just wonder whether she might want to say something.
Well, the other book he read, he actually wrote a biography of the Durrell family when they were living in Corfu.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a biography. It's clear-cut.
Gerald Durrell?
Gerald Durrell, Lawrence Durrell, the entire family. And he follows them to, when we read the Gerald Durrell books, we know of what happened to them partially. Now, what he does is, he does a very interesting thing. Of course, he follows their lives from the beginning. I mean, it doesn't start in Corfu, of course. His mother, who was born and brought up, she was an Anglo-Indian. She was born and brought up in India and she liked Indian life. But, whatever reasons, they went to, when her husband died, it was thought that she should go with her children to England and so on and so forth. Anyway, all of that. But then what happens to the family in the end? But he also brings out, he says, in this particular incident, in my family and other animals, there was this whole group of people who had come to the house, how his brother Larry behaves, how everyone behaves. And he says, actually, but this is what we know. These are the people who had visited, these weren't. So he sort of separates the fact from the fiction, and he does it in a very amusing way and in a very, in a very sympathetic way. He's not critical in any way. But if you want to know more about the Durrells, it's a lovely book.
Okay.
And it's also a very short book. I think he writes short books.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's so readable. Mm-hmm. Like I said, short book, short chapters.
I have one observation about this Midnight Library. I started it, and I was wondering, oh my God, is it going to be depressing? And therefore, I mean, I haven't finished it because I just started it. But what you tell me more, when you say that this Midnight Library is a thing, this is actually very much I mean, I might sound crazy, huh? But this sounds very like a simulation of what New Agers called, I mean, it's a very New Age concept, where they don't think that this life is all. They believe in reincarnation, and they believe actually the universe gives you what you want. Maybe not in this life, but in another. And it is only when you've exhausted, in theory, and this is a theory, only when you have exhausted all your desires, and this is our Indian philosophy as well, you have vasanas, right? And it is only when you have exhausted all your vasanas that you actually are in a position to be liberated and leave the world of existence. And you get moksha.
Released, yes,
Released, exactly. So when you were describing this, I said, oh my God, this is a fabulous depiction of a very complicated philosophical thought, worldview. Yeah.
Thank you.
The Kaveris are, 1 minute. I think Latika has raised her hand. Latika, you have something to say?
Balam Billy Mori also.
But if someone has to, has something to say, I'm willing to wait.
No,
think Wispy
Latika,
will-
go ahead, then Wispy will come on after you.
Okay, one comment and one little speculative, some speculative words. One comment, I just remembered this girl Nora was a swimmer, right?
Yes.
And I remember the 1972 Munich Olympics, where a young girl of barely 16 from Australia called Shane Gould won about 3 medals.
Yeah.
Just 16, extraordinary girl. And then she just vanished because she could not take the media pressure or the public pressure
Right.
of popularity. So for 25 years or 30 years, she did nothing. Just to tell you that it could happen,
I know.
for a young
What
girl.
about Jennifer
Baileys.
Gabriati?
It happened
You
last
remember?
year.
Yeah,
It
it can
happened
happen.
last year with
Just
that
remember because
late
swimmer,
Baileys.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
Yes,
second thing is, I wanted to ask you is this called Midnight Library. It's a library between life and death.
Yes.
I don't know I haven't understood what it's supposed to symbolize, because in the end, Nora rushes and finds only one book that is not burnt. She doesn't know what that book is. They're all green in any case. And she takes that book. So do these books have something that teach you, that each book,
Each book is the story of her life.
Each book is the story of her life. Each book in that huge library.
Given that a slightly different decision in each. We are making so many decisions all the time. You can imagine there are indeed an infinite variety of lives, slightly different, very different, etc. So each book is the story of her life given a certain decision. That's how it is.
Given a certain
decision.
Yeah.
It's like you come to a fork. It's like different timelines. One decision decides which timeline you'll go on to.
So that, you take a certain road and not the others. But then you take a different decision, you take another road, not that one. And then you go on and on.
And if she had actually picked up another book, not the one that she picked up, but another one, would she have had a different future? You don't know.
But you see, it's very clear that this is the only one that isn't on fire.
Yeah, well, that is...
librarian tells her, because it's
worked out like that.
Enormous, everything's burning and crumbling, the pillars are falling, the computer has exploded, etc. But the librarian tells her there is one book and it's in aisle 11. So she knows. So she goes there and picks it up and goes out. And in the Midnight Library, it is always midnight, by the way. Time does not progress.
Time does not. This is, these are all quantum physics theories, by the way. Quantum physics nowadays talks of different dimensions, different timelines, and in different dimensions where time doesn't, in fact, theoretically, time doesn't exist. Beyond our time doesn't exist beyond the 4th dimension. We are in the 3rd dimension.
I was also thinking of Sanjay Phadke and what we talked that day.
Yes, exactly.
Metaverse. And in this book, they do use the word metaverse because a space in which you have so many lives. It's not a universe, it's a metaverse.
multiverse also, they talk it. Metaverse is something which is beyond, right? So yeah, it is a metaverse.
Strange. I read a poem today by Tagore, and the poem is actually about two birds. One is a free bird and one is a caged bird, and they converse. And the free bird says, "Get out of your golden cage. Come on out. There are things to do in this world." And the caged bird says, "But I'm happy where I am. There's comfort and familiarity." So, there are so many ways one can actually look at life.
Yes. So Nora, Nora goes back to her root life, but with a changed perspective.
Yeah.
Now the decisions that she takes are not going to be the same ones.
No.
The change has occurred in her.
Yeah, which I think is a very, very profound insight. Because your perspective changes everything.
The book is profound, but in a very light-hearted way. It's a very good combination. The first time I read it, I sort of zoomed through it and enjoyed it, Second time when I read it in order to make this presentation, I saw the amount of depth that there is if you just give yourself a chance to read it slowly and ponder everything. It's less than profound, but it doesn't have the weight, it doesn't have the emptiness.
Can Gautam had something different to say?
Wispy and Sheena.
Where's Gautam?
Wispy had raised hand.
Two people have raised hands, Satish.
Who have raised?
Wispy and Sheena.
Wispy, please go ahead, and then Sheena, and then Gautam.
Thank you, Satish. First of all, Mohini, thank you very much for introducing me to what I found was a fascinating book in the way in which it was constructed. When it begins with, this is whatever, 28 days before she decided to die. Then it comes closer, that death.
Yes.
So many days. And this working things out. And then, of course, you've explained, brilliantly explained the various options. One thing that struck me, because Mrs. Elm is the one who advises her, whom she actually looks for support, if that support is possible. At one point tells her, you have the choice, but you cannot choose the outcome. The outcome is something you work towards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
So
she can choose a life in which she did not take a certain decision, but then she has to see how it goes from there.
So the outcome is something that develops from the choice that you make. Also this, the fact that it's the library, because it can be, as you said, so many other things depending on, I suppose, that person's interest.
The comfort level, yes.
Video library or, wherever. But what I really liked was in the opening page, the quote by Sylvia Plath, which says that life is birth and death, and in between is the library, which gives you the opportunity to live many lives. And this is something that I like to tell my students, what I value in literature. We cannot all be, we can't be the Olympic swimmer, the runner or whatever. But when you read a book, it opens avenues for you. It takes you to whichever part of the world, it widens your experience. And I think that's what I saw in the significance of it being a library. The possibility of, in a way, living those lives vicariously. So I appreciated that Sylvia Plath quote and how Haig has sort of taken that forward in the way she keeps going back, because every choice, she's had that that sort of freedom given, if you want to accept the word freedom, to try out, which of course, in reality, we can't, we don't have that. Okay, try this, okay, never mind, go back, reject that, go back. So those options given to her. So I really found the way in which he constructed the book as something, that was something unique, something different, and it sort of holds your attention. So once again, Mohini, I'm grateful to you for.
Thank you. And this thing about 9 hours before I decided to die and all that, it reminded me of a book I presented about a year ago, Elif Shafak, 10 minutes and 38 seconds, which is another fanciful premise, that after the body dies, that is when the heart stops beating and so on, the mind doesn't stop for 10 minutes and 38 seconds. And we're told 10 minutes, 9 minutes, till she dies. And what she's thinking. So that bit of the time thing reminded me of that novel. But this quote, that between life and death there is a library, is not Sylvia Plath. It is Matt Haig
himself.
Yeah, she said, Elm said.
Okay.
Was there someone else?
Who's next?
Sheena.
Sheena. Where are you, Sheena? I can't see you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I read the book because when I heard that Mohini is going to present it, so I quickly got it and I read it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Thanks, Mohini. It has
thanks,
been on
Sheena.
my TBR. Yeah, it has been on my TBR for since it was released 2 years ago, but I never got down to reading it until I said, now it's the time to read it because it's going to be presented. So I must say that I was very jealous of this Nora Seed. And I was resenting that she was getting so many multiple chances and opportunities. It just went on. And I was so jealous of her. And I disliked her at one point. And then I said, life is not a wardrobe. This doesn't fit. Try it on, discard this, put another one on. It's not like that. So then what I did was I sort of, when I was like 80% done, then I realized where it was going. And I don't think it is sad at all. It is very optimistic. It's very hopeful. And Mohini, I don't think that she died. That's how I explained it to myself. She definitely had a drug overdose, but not enough to kill her. She was on the brink of death. And what happens is that she goes into this long, deep sleep. And she has all these dreams and all these lives are all playing. If it was not this, it was this would have happened, that would have happened. And that is why she wakes up after a few hours and she decides to take help. And Mr. Banerjee calls a hospital and she goes to the hospital and she has those pills pumped out of her stomach because she wants to live.
Interesting.
So that is my take on this, and that is why I don't think it is supernatural realism or magic or anything. It was all one.
No, it is not. It is not.
And also, I like the way it ended because she doesn't end with any of the men. Whether it was Ash or it was Dan or it was somebody else, it was the other guy. There was a guy that she met in the pet shelter, Dylan. So what I like is that he doesn't feel it necessary to give her a love interest in the end. And now she's free to make her choices and appreciate the outcomes of those choices. So that is what I like about the book.
Yes. In fact, be more mindful of them. I think that's what ultimately the book focuses on.
That's the lesson, yeah.
Yes, the mindfulness required when you take your choices. And Sheena, when you say you were jealous of her because she got so many chances, I was jealous of her because she had so many things going for her. I mean, Olympic swimming champ, singer, songwriter for her.
She had options, yeah.
Ooh, I mean, she had that already. She was those things. How marvelous can that be?
She had lots of good choices and options. That's the thing. Not very many people have those options.
I know. But in spite of that, and I think that's why he's given her those good options. In spite of that, she was depressed. She had low sense of self-worth and she committed suicide, right?
Indu is waiting to talk to you.
Indu and Sunita.
And then Sunita after that.
Now look at this. Matt Haig's fantasy is something out of the world because he writes for children also and he writes for grown-ups. Now, looking at this book and the way the story goes, as Sheena and Ruma, others are saying. You bring that string theory of the physics into it. So many planes and so many lives. So it's absolutely fascinating that you wait to see, is she getting fed up of it? Is she not suited to it? Who chooses that? I suppose sometimes you have to choose yourself, because at any point of life, you are playing so many roles also. Not only if you're an actor or a teacher
Oh, yeah.
or a lawyer.
Absolutely. So we all play so many roles.
Yeah, career, politician, husband, wife, lover. I mean, at so many levels, we are living so many lives. And it's just a question of success and how happy we are. And as Mohini said, the courage to finally choose and to stick by something. If you want to live, well, then at some point, I suppose you have to stop choosing and be happy with what you've got on your plate. But people find that you need people. You need people to be happy. So that dependency on other people, all the other people, Hugo, Dan, Mrs. Elm, the librarian.
That's human.
Yeah,
that's
the room.
Human. I think
the connection. Yeah.
It's human. We all need people.
Yeah. And she comes back to her. I think he's done it very cleverly. It's a very intelligent and a very clever kind of a book, which I enjoyed reading it, enjoyed your presentation and ideas. And so many ideas, that spark of.
Yes, that's the wonderful thing. Absolutely.
That we have. Yeah.
And it encourages introspection, it encourages you to think about the whole thing. It's marvelous.
Look with it and see how. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Sunita would like to say something. Sunita, come on.
Very, very quickly, I just want to tell you, Mohini, that this reminded me of a movie called It's a Wonderful Life. It's a very popular movie. It's a Frank Capra movie. It's rated among the 100 best movies made in the United States. It's a Christmas viewing where the protagonist, and he's from a community called Bedford Falls, and it sort of seemed like the name of the place where she was from as well. And he goes to commit suicide on Christmas Eve because he goes through a financial mess and things like that. And his guardian angel comes and takes him through his life and shows him the number of lives he has touched, right? He saved his brother from drowning as a child, and how he had the community and all that. And he gets him to see how valuable his life is in a way, and prevents him from committing suicide. Sort of reminded me of that.
Right. Yes, indeed. Definite connection.
Yeah.
I think Gautam was the one who said, why do you want to have everything about dying and committing suicide? Come on, Gautam, speak up.
Two points only.
One, put on your video, Gautam.
Okay, but I haven't shaved today.
Shit, man.
No, he's not wearing his clothes also.
Shit, yeah.
Okay, Gautam, go ahead.
Yeah. So
put on your mic, video also. We would like to see you.
So it's on. Okay. Anyway, two short points. One is this presentation was very disappointing for me because it was so bloody excellent that I can never match it. I cannot speculate ever doing any review in this book club ever. That's one. Second point is that these are not. In retrospect, in Nora's life, it shows that the choices, if she had made them, would have been worse. And therefore, there was nothing to regret about actually. All the library books which she took, or she tried those alternate lives or speculated about those lives, were actually at the end of it all, it shows, or it kind of the book says that those would have been bad choices.
No, that's not.
No.
So in the tattooed, or the sad life with Dan, or the different options which she had, if she had chosen them, would not have been great, or the fact that she had regrets about the cat dying because she let out the cat.
You know, at one point, Mrs. Elm does say there's no such thing as a perfect life.
Yeah.
And concepts of happiness, I mean, that's open to personal interpretation always. Now, you know, when she goes back to the music scene, like she's this lead singer, she had always been afraid of visibility, which is why she gave up on swimming, for example. But now she enjoys it. And she says, wow, this is great. She feels empowered, and how beautifully she handles the situation.
But then when she still goes back to the library thereafter, which shows that she still kind of regrets and wants to try out another life. She does not like that life which she tried out, or the alternate life shown to her, and she goes back to the library, and Mrs. Elms tells her, as long as you have regrets, you will come back. So she regretted even the musician's life in Brazil or Sao Paulo or whatever. She sees that, sees her tattoos and the scars and the life, and yet she wants to regret it and come back to the library.
It's her brother's death, you know, which she can't process it.
Right.
So shocked at hearing that her brother has died of that life, you know, of that the drug overdose or whatever. That's
the kind of life,
process, and so she comes back at that point. But if you're Hugo, I didn't spend very much time on Hugo. Hugo is that other guy who is also in a similar situation in lives. He has tried on 300.
Yeah.
And she is amazed, and she says, really? I mean, is there no end to this? Can you just go on forever? And he says, as long as you have the will, you know, to want to know what other lives could be, then yes, go on. And just imagine like how many years he has been living different lives. So ultimately, I think there are no rational answers to these kind of questions. But what you have to focus on is the general concept of there being so
No, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Possibilities.
Repeat, more repeat, we can't hear you.
Where I can't even actually see my.
Okay, we can see you now. Go ahead.
You can see you. Okay, you can go ahead speaking.
Okay, shall we have the
According to me, I'm not muted. You can't hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Ah, okay. So what I was saying is that there are no rational answers to these questions, you know. So what you need to focus on is just the concept, the base concept. So many possibilities, you have so much potential, and how important it is to be very mindful of the choices, knowing that each choice will have so many repercussions and it will take you in a certain direction. There's no coming back. The Robert Frost's poem also says that, but there's no coming back.
Right.
Importance of choice.
Kaveri, you can give the last answer. Last question.
I would like to add something.
Who?
Myself, Farooq Merchant.
Okay, Farooq, you come next, and then comes Kaveri.
Okay, so like Gautam said, very jealous of the PPT presentation. I wish I could do that. Second thing is this book reminded me of the program that we had yesterday on Kabir's Dohas, where Kabir describes that, you know, everything, he disowns the holy book, he disowns prophets, and he says everything is within us. And as they say, life you lead by the choices you make. The whole program yesterday, you know, I have not understood Kabir so much, but this book was very philosophical. And if Sunita agrees with me, this would be a very good book for a MBA or a management for professionals to read, you know. I mean, this is something which I could add after listening to the book that you was presented by Mohini. Always a pleasure to hear Mohini give a presentation.
Sorry, I'll just add one comment here. Farooq, there is a course at Stanford called Design Your Life. And there are two Stanford professors, hugely popular, especially at this point, of getting young people to know that they can lead multiple lives. So this sort of reminded me of that as well, where, you don't have to be an engineer because you've studied engineering. You can do multiple things. You can be that Olympic swimming champion, and you can be that singer, and you just need to design your life. So they take the design thinking methodology and they apply it to your own life, and it's a hugely popular course in Stanford. So it is there.
Wow.
Here's an engineer who's doing everything else but engineering.
True, very true. Yes.
Kaveri, where are you?
Kaveri,
you can talk of an MBA. And are you doing that work?
is she there?
She's there. But okay,
But she may not be.
I think we'll wind up.
I think she's not. Mo, you can.
Mo, as usual.
Okay,
So
so
1 minute. Let me talk first. Well,
Satish, before you go ahead,
tell me, Farokh.
if you were to given a choice to go back to the library, you had thought about mountaineering and you talked about being football player and everything. But what about Mohini? I mean, what would be your choice if you were given a choice to go back to the library?
That will be Mohini's choice. My choice, I tell you something. I always dreamt that football, I love playing football and I would have liked to play it longer. I always dreamt that I could be of help to others and do it much more than what I have done. And I complete every now and then I say I've been a failure on that because I did not do this, that, and the other. Started off differently. So whatever, we all have choices which you do. But I think the best thing is you take it, understand why you couldn't do it or why you couldn't, and don't just grieve about it. Don't let it overpower you. If you let it overpower you,
that's right. No regrets.
What was that Rajesh Khanna thing? I don't like tears.
I hate tears.
I don't like tears. Pushpa, aisa kuch bhi hai na?
Yeah, that's what I believe in. Kaveri, if you're not there, Mo, take it
So
away. Before you take it away, what I would like to say that I'm glad this kind of a book comes up because then people can start thinking. Literature opens up minds for you. And you're thinking, think about what has been talked about and you go take it further up. And that is the way to live.
Dr. Barucha is
Dr. Tomorrow. To think about tomorrow without, hona tha, waise chahiye ho, hona tha. Screw that. What you would like to do with whatever problems you have today, take it further up. Okay, Mo, all yours.
Okay,
Barucha wants to add something.
Barucha wants to say something.
So just a small comment. Do you all remember the words of this song called My Way?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
My way.
That's it.
Frank Sinatra.
That's it. My Way. I remember in morning, the 50s song I keep on listening to about that. Frank Sinatra.
Right.
So we are that age. I'm a little younger than you, that's all.
Okay, so what we're going to have next week, I'll just, Monica Das. Now, Monica, are you here? Would you like to talk about it yourself? Monica, are you here?
Monica is not there.
Okay, she's not here now. All right, so we have Monica Das. I want to thank Dr. Rekha Deshmukh for introducing her to me. Monica Das has put a collection of short stories on the theme of women. The title is The Other Woman, and it is about women in social situations of polygamy and so on and so forth. And the stories are all by very eminent writers. She sent me 3 stories, and I will be putting that on WhatsApp and email. And you can read those stories before we have the session so that we'll all have read the 3 stories that she will mainly refer to when she talks. So that's next Sunday, The Other Woman. And the Sunday after that, we have Indu Kulkarni talking about the poems of Robert Frost. Okay, right. So that's it. Then we have Alice Munro, we have Eugene O'Neill, we have all kinds of good things coming thereafter.
Mo, There's a little note to you from Kaveri. Line is been cut off or something like that.
Yeah.
I have problems of connection. This is the third time I got disconnected today. I really enjoyed Mohini's presentation. All of us have some stage have wondered whether we made the right choices. So it was very relatable. Please thank Mohini for me. That's there.
Thank you. So sweet of her.
Take away, take it
Okay.
away.
So bye-bye. You like the last word?
Yeah, I just want to announce something about Gyanadab.
Yes.
So next week, as per Satish Khot's advice, we are having Ramesh for the jazz music. And Ramesh has been in touch with me, and we are going to now properly make the program. So how the Western jazz music has merged with the Bollywood jazz music. There's going to be a 1-hour presentation on that with some beautiful tunes that Ramesh has collected. 5th of February, we are having a program on the myths and realities of eclipses. And the week after that, we have Mukul's some relative, Mr. Hassan. He has written a book on Ghalib in English. So it's going to be a book on a talk on Ghalib that we are going to have. And post that, around the end of February, one gentleman whom Apurva Bahadur has recommended, he is known as the waterman of the railways. He is presently situated in Hubli, and he has done a lot of work on water, how to preserve water, how to conserve water, and how to create water out of rainwater. And a complete city can be independent of the rains in case if we manage to handle water properly. So those are the programs that we have presently. And then maybe March programs are also getting booked. The guy who made a 12-inch telescope. He's going to come in the last week of March because he's going to talk from Portland. So he wants that daylight 1 hour to go. So these are the programs we are having in Gyanadab. And in Guldaste Urdu, we'll soon be finalizing a new author for next year. We took Kabir this year. We had taken some other author last month. So chalte rahega aisa, Urdu, English, Gyan Pedia.
So everyone, please realize how wide our reach is.
Spectrum, a very wide spectrum.
Feel proud to be involved in all this.
Very much so. I think we can all feel very proud to be associated with Gyanadab, honestly.
And honestly, Mohini, you must give me a chance one day to give a presentation on Gyanadab's new website. I think we have done a very good job on the website, and the archiving that we have done, Guldasta Urdu, Book Club, all our other programs, right from the time we have started, and especially in the last 2 years, all the programs, videos are uploaded on YouTube. You can go to YouTube, go to the channel of Gyanadab and check on videos. All the videos are there. Book Club videos are there. Wherever we started getting used to the technology, we have started putting things on this. Our Facebook is very active. Our Instagram is very active. What we need in Facebook and Instagram are posts to be put, Facebook and Instagram works when you put posts. So I would suggest that some more people should get involved because social media is the new thing, is a done thing now.
True. I'm zero.
Website, both
I'm requesting everyone on in the book club, look onto that, and you have suggestions, make on that, write about it, and we'll see how it goes forward. Look, we have always been very close with everyone along. We work together as a big team, and you all are part of our team, and you have been there together with us all as well. So we want you to be also involved very much in this.
See, Satish,
thanks a lot, Farooq, and thanks
Satish,
a lot.
one thing, we had before the Gyanadab website that we had before, we had also a place where people could write their own blogs. Like for example, Sunita thinks of something and she writes a blog. We can give authority to Sunita once the blog has been approved by 2-3 other people, that a blog can go. So it need not necessarily be that you come to a book club only to express what you have read or what you have thought of. A blog can go on the Gyanadab's website, and the link can be put on Facebook. It can be put on, on Instagram. Say, for example, Chetan makes a video, a small 5-minute, 10-minute video. It can go on the blog. It need not be our big 1-hour programs also. And Gyanadab can become more, more bigger community as people get a chance to put their stuff on it. Somebody writes a poem or somebody writes a story or somebody
Great
observe.
idea. Great idea.
He does not have the capacity to make a presentation like Mohini can do. You know, people can do it in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something मैं पढ़ा, मुझे ये अच्छा लगा, and put it. ऐसा मेरा thought है. I don't know how.
We'll work it out,
That's
Farooq.
excellent. Yeah,
More,
absolutely. Okay, so thank you everyone who came here today. Thank you for participating. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making comments, and hope to see you again next Sunday. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.